back to another episode of Built from the Inside Out. And today I'm here with wife, mom, and hustler Marisol Herrera.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here.
Nice to finally meet you. I've only met you through social media, so it's nice to finally meet you and be here with you. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, I actually saw you on the new podcast that, well, I don't know if it's new, but I guess you guys recently started a series, Red Pill Tamale.
Yes. So my husband already had What Did He Said podcast. And I guess this year for him, it was a little bit of a different route that he went as far as politically. And so he just kind of decided that he was going to start a Red Pill Tamale series. And so here we are. So I occasionally get on and voice my opinion whenever producer Rob or him asks me like, hey, do you want to come on for this episode? And I'll be like, all right, that's fine. I'll go on. You know, I try not to be on it as much just because sometimes our subjects kind of cross. And then when I have my own podcast, it's like, dang it, I already talked about that on there. People already heard it. So it's kind of like, so I just try to be on there here and there. So yeah. So, but thanks for listening. We appreciate you. All the listeners who listen to that. Yeah. So
tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I am a mom. I have one stepdaughter who is 12 and then my baby is 2. And I have, I am a sign language interpreter. That's technically what my degree is in. And so I'm a sign language interpreter. And I also manage my husband's comedy tour. And I have a clothing line called Her Apparel. And that's it. I used to be a bodybuilder for a hot minute. And then baby happened and that went down the road. And so, you know, but I'm still very much into fitness and, you know, health and so forth. So that's just a little bit about me, but yeah.
That's awesome. So what really caught my attention was that you do all these things, but I heard you talking about, you know, a little bit about feminism on the podcast and how you said you've never been one of those women who are like, I don't need a man. And
yeah, I just, I don't know if it was my upbringing, maybe. I don't know if it was because I had my mom and dad. My mom and dad each played their role. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. And then when we were old enough to go off to school, she decided to go to school and become a hairdresser. And then she opened her own hair salon. But my dad also never kept her from being who she was. So maybe I saw equality at home. But at the same time, each one played their role. So my dad was the man of the house and my mom was the mom. And my mom's money was her money. You know, it wasn't like she worked so that she can contribute. She worked because she wanted to. She never had to work. My dad did that, you know?
Yeah.
And so my mom's extra money just kind of was our fun money. So her working allowed us to travel, allowed us to have, you know, more than my parents had to provide, you know, so that helped a lot. So I don't know if that played a little bit of a role in my life, but I just feel like there is a difference between women empowerment and feminism. And I feel like feminism has just become too extreme, in my opinion. And to where the point where it's like, are y'all trying to get rid of men? Like, what are we doing here? Like, a lot of times I think that women confuse the role of a man with him trying to be maybe macho. And I'm not saying there aren't macho men out there because there's plenty of them, you know. But I feel like sometimes, and more so, I guess now our society is changing so much and it's all about like, I just have never been one to cry wolf. If I wanted something, I worked for it. I never was the victim. Like, oh, I'm a female, so it's not happening for me. On that episode that you're talking about, the example that I gave was when I went to go work at this place, I went in and I negotiated my rate. I knew what my skills were. I knew what I came with. You know, I knew my experience. So I wasn't going to take what you were offering me. This is what I was asking for. And I get it. If you couldn't meet me, then that meant that I need to go elsewhere where they would meet what I was asking for. When I got the job there, I was having a conversation with a gentleman there, and I don't know how the hourly rate came about. So anyhow, he was making 13 and I was making 15, and he was pissed. And he was like, oh, that's not fair. It's because you're a female. I was like, what? I was like, no, I don't think that has anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I said, if anything, I think it's because you didn't come in perhaps with any experience or what they were looking for. I'd worked at a call center to get through college. So I had the experience. I knew the programs that they used there. So there was no need for me to have to accept the 13 an hour. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes instead of women trying to play the victim, if we just kind of sat there and said, well, do I come with what they're asking for? Do I have what it takes? Do I need to, educate myself more, learn more, read more? And I think if we kind of sat back and just analyzed that a little bit more and quit trying to play the blame game, I think us women would be even at a better position that we are, because women in general are an amazing thing. Like we do things that men can't do, period. I don't care how strong a man is. A man cannot create life. Men and women come from another female. That alone right there is powerful. And if you don't think that that's powerful, then maybe there's something within you that you've got to work on. And then there's things that as women, we can't do that men can do. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like there's a reason why there's a male and female. And I know that right now with these gender roles and gender identification, and you're a man, but you identify as a female, or, all those things, I just think that's just the world we're going into. And if you just focus on being the best person that you can be, perhaps you don't have to be so bitter as a female, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's kind of how I feel about, the feminism out there is so extreme. And I just kind of I don't get it. And why? What are we gaining from it?
Exactly. And like based on what you were telling me, it sounds like you came from a healthy home.
Right.
Your parents' relationship was a healthy one. Your dad was a provider.
Right.
Your mom worked because she wanted
to,
not because she had to.
Right.
And to me, it's like that's a healthy environment. And I feel like a lot of these women that are, I guess, wanting to be seen the same as men, it's like most of them come from broken homes.
Right.
And they come with trauma.
Right. Exactly. And that's why I said there's something else within you that has made you. And I think a little bit, I could be wrong, but I think a little bit has to do with self-esteem. You probably don't feel good about yourself. There's something in your life that's missing. A lot of women that say, oh, I don't need a man to have a kid. Okay, you're right. You don't, right? But you still need a donor. And who's the donor?
Yeah.
A male still. Yeah. So you do need a male in your life. And also you need a male in the child's life to play a positive male role model. Whoever it is that you choose, you still need that male in your child's life,
Yeah.
So you can't exclude men out of life, period, because we weren't wired that way. Life was not wired that way. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's a male and another male, like two males together, two females together, usually in that role, one plays the dominant and one plays the lesser role. So even in a heterosexual or gay marriage, if you pay attention, usually one is the provider and one's the one that's not the provider. You know what I'm saying? So if you really think about it, it's like we all at times have to play different roles in your relationship, whether it's with your mother, your child, your husband, your boyfriend, whoever it is at work. We all play different roles. And, if you just kind of are happy with yourself, you know what you come with, it's like there's no need to feel intimidated by a male. I am not at all intimidated by. I work in a predominantly male industry. It's you don't see as many female managers, I guess, if that's what you want to consider it. And so, it's always, they think because you're female that they can kind of bully you or talk to you a certain way. And it's about you being assertive. It's about you putting your foot down like, hey, you're not talking to me like that. I'm not an idiot. I know what I'm talking about, And I always love killing people with kindness because it just makes them feel worse. And then if you're sarcastic and your responses are like on point and true, they hate you even more. But they can't be mad at you because not once did you cuss at them, not once did you raise your voice at them. You didn't argue with them. And it's like, it is what it is. It's like, it's you as a female, just, I feel, educating yourself, learning, and playing your role as a female versus, you always playing the victim. That's why I can't vibe with that extreme feminism. And I just can't, I'm just not about that movement. I never have been, even though I am about women empowerment. And to me, women empowerment is us lifting each other up. For me, it's about, if you're doing something great, I want to acknowledge that you're doing something great. Like, wow, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying, to put out there in the world. If you're putting good energy out there, I want others to also feel your energy. So I am going to, encourage and, repost whatever I see,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like we need to compete against each other, because really none of us are made the same. So even though we may be doing the same thing, there's something about you that may be unique that the other person may not have.
Yeah.
And a customer may prefer you over them. So to me, I don't ever understand the female bashing, just the hating and that whole thing. For me, my social media is completely 100% based on women empowerment, but not feminism. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm just not about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not about, I feel like we need to have a difference between a male and a male and a female. I don't feel like it's just about me. Now, there's single mothers out there who do an amazing job, but eventually these single mothers would love it if they had a partner who could probably support and help them, because it helps when you have a partner who can, come in and, take a little bit of the workload off of you. Even if it's like, hey, I'm going to go shower. Can you watch the baby for, 30 minutes or whatever it is, So even if you're a single mother and you're like, hell no, she's wrong. I don't need anybody. I guarantee you, if you had the right partner in your life, I guarantee you, if you had that partner that saw you equal, and I hate to use the word equal, because one way or the other, mom kind of always has a little bit more of the responsibility, or the wife. But, if they help you out, it does make it easier for you. At least in my situation, I can say that. You know what I'm saying? My husband helps me. If I want to go do something, if I want to go get my nails done, I'll be like, hey, can you watch Penny for a little bit? I'll be back in about 2 hours. Okay, cool. And it's given a heads up. It's planned. It's scheduled. It's like, so forth. So even as a single parent, I think if you want to be honest, you can't tell me that if you had a partner, it wouldn't be easier for you, and it would probably help you out a lot, whether it be financially, whether it be time, whether it be, the support, period, just to have someone to lean on when you need them,
Yeah.
So I don't know why we are in an era where we hate men. I don't get it.
I don't understand either.
Right? It's just like, what happened? Like, it's funny because during this pandemic, I went down so many rabbit holes. and it was like, okay, the whole feminism thing, the Me Too thing that was going on for a hot second. It's like, okay, do we need to be that extreme? I don't think anybody deserves to be raped. I don't think anybody deserves to be molested. No one does. You know what I'm saying? But some of the females that were coming out, I felt like, you waited 28 years, 30 years to come out. So you're telling me that all that money you were making during these movies or during this time was making you feel okay to accept all this sexual harassment or all this, you know what I'm saying? And now you're finally going to come out because there's a pandemic and there's no movies happening and there's nothing happening. That's kind of how I saw it. Again, I am not for anybody being raped, sexually molested, or asked to do sexual favors or anything like that. But at some point you kind of agree to it. And maybe it took you 30 years to come out. I don't know, but
Hollywood's tricky.
It
Hollywood
is.
so
It's very true because my husband's in the entertainment business, so I get it. But I just feel like at some point you have got to feel something within you, be like, I can no longer accept this man doing this to me just so that I can get a movie role. Like, we've got to have just a little bit more respect for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? To where you're not going to accept that type of treatment just so that you can make it in life. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. That's your dream, but is that the only way you can do it?
Yeah.
Obviously there's a lot of women out there who, gosh, who was the lady that I think she was on that show Charm, and she came out and she wrote a whole book accusing, and she started saying about other women who would take in favors to get lead roles. And so she really put a lot of people on blast. And a lot of her things were like, a lot of y'all are like, why am I just now coming out with it? Well, this is why. Well, one, I'm no longer on any shows. No one's really taking me because I just came out and told the truth. So she was like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. And I get it. You know what I'm saying? So, but everything is so tricky right now. Anything you say, I mean, it's harder now for females to get jobs. Why? Because I read the statistic about where men are more hesitant to hire women now because they're scared with this whole sexual harassment thing. So now we've kind of hindered, women who are probably not as aggressive with this whole, there's one thing with someone giving you a compliment, like a sincere compliment, like maybe you got a new haircut and you walked by. I just don't see it wrong if a man says, hey, your haircut looks good on you. Now, it'd be a difference if it's like, damn, that haircut looks good on you, girl. Or, you know what I'm saying? There's a way that someone says it. Yeah. I feel like if it's in a positive way to where it wasn't tone, body language, all that is kind of telling you where this person is kind of going with this compliment. You know what I'm saying? So if this person's coming to you and they kind of just give you a sincere compliment that they've noticed, I don't see the reason for it to be turned into sexual harassment. Now, if he's touching on you, if he's saying like, let's go out on a date, and you know that he knows you're married, or he kind of touches you in the wrong way and makes you uncomfortable, of course. But sometimes a sincere compliment is a sincere compliment. It has nothing to do with sexually harassing you. You know what I'm saying? So they were saying that a lot of companies are now more hesitant to hire women because of this whole Me Too and sexual harassment situation. So
I don't know, that don't let females be in certain roles because they've had problems in the past.
Yeah. So
I mean, but I don't know. When it comes to Hollywood, it's the stories I've heard, and like you said, like just get out of there as fast as you can. But a lot of them I've heard like do get raped, like on scene, on set, like while they're filming, and they can't say anything because it's their word against the big name actor or whatever. So
it's ridiculous. It's so tricky with them. And that's just the thing. It's not fair for females. And there should be like some kind of advocate thing, like where women can go and report these type of things without being blackballed or, you know what I'm saying?
They have an HR.
They don't. They don't, and it's crazy because, what is that called? The actor, like an actors union, you know what I'm saying? You would think SAG. There you go. SAG. Yeah. You would think that they would protect them. They're paying these fees every month. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You provide insurance for them with these fees. So why not offer some kind of protection for them as well, to where there's a counselor or some kind of department that they can report these issues to, can be investigated. You know what I'm saying? That way, should this need to be taken to court? Should somebody need to be, sent to jail for this? It's just a neutral person, not in that, field, because I think that it should be someone who's more neutral. You know what I'm saying? Who's not going to look at it. Oh, this is, and I'm just saying this as an example. I'm not saying this has happened, but let's just say Tom Cruise. You know what I'm saying? It's Tom Cruise and Jenny over here. We don't know. Jenny's nobody, but Tom Cruise is big, so obviously whose side are they going to take? Tom Cruise's. Yeah. So if there was a neutral agency, someone who just, their job is to be the mediator and decide how this will be taken care of, if this is going to go to court, if that person's going to get fired, then, you know what I'm saying? Then that's what needs to be done. But it like you said, Hollywood is so tricky. It's like, it's just a sad situation. Yeah. It's totally a mafia, a mafia. And it's just really sad that, it's come to that. It's come to, I don't really know, like, what gives these men the right to say, oh yeah, so you want this role? Well, this is how it's gonna go down. You know what I'm saying? So they're sick in the head. There's got to be something wrong with them for them to think that this is something that they can do to females. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of things as far as like women who protest against certain things like that. I can see why that needs to be protested. But then there's certain things that just they're going overboard, and it's just kind of like, come on, really? Like, I don't know about that. And now. Feminism, I think it was Stanford that did some, I guess a whole article about it. And I had no idea that feminism is actually categorized, I think, in 4 categories. So it's like liberal feminism, Marxist feminism, capitalist feminism, and then radical feminism. And each one is a different thing. Pretty much, I guess, a radical feminism is, from what I understand, it's like they're like the men race needs to just be deleted. Like, you don't serve a purpose in this world type of thing. And I was like, damn, that's kind of harsh. That's hardcore, But everybody, falls in, I guess, in one or the other. I've never been like that. I've never been one to fight for things like that. I've always fought for or thought that how I want to empower women is by making you feel like you can do whatever, because we can do whatever. You know what I'm saying? It may take you a little bit longer than probably the other person, but it's okay because you did it by yourself with no help. And it's a story that you get to tell later, that you did this on your own. This didn't come from, someone giving me help. You figured it out. You made it happen. Yeah. And a lot of women out there make way more money than men and they're successful and they have an amazing businesses. And it's because they worked their asses off. They didn't wait around to see who was going to give them a handout. They didn't wait around to see who was going to say, pity me, It was because they had a dream. They took the steps that they needed to take to get there, and they made it happen, and it may or may not have been about, feminism here, but it didn't matter because they got to where they wanted to be without the help of, anybody but themselves, So there's millions of women out there who are super duper successful and did it on their own, which didn't need, for you to be this extreme feminism,
Yeah.
I also don't ever get like, I don't know if you've seen like I still follow a lot of people that are this way. I don't stop following them because it doesn't necessarily say they're bad people or anything like that. But it trips me out when I'll see like bashing of men. And I'm just like, okay, do you have a dad and your dad maybe was that bad person? Yeah. I'm just curious. I'm not saying that my dad was perfect. But my dad was very traditional Mexican, so I don't know if that was a lot of it. And it's funny because my dad growing up, when I was going to college and I was paying it for, I paid for it on my own. I had asked him, I said, well, Dad, how come you and Mom didn't put money aside for us so that we could go to school so that we didn't have to figure it out,
Yeah.
And he said, well, I just honestly thought that, you would graduate high school, you'd find the love of your life, you'd raise a family, and, you'd be a stay-at-home mom, your husband would provide. And I was like, that's all you wanted for me? But to him, that's an amazing thing. Yeah. That's beautiful to him. Yeah. To him, that's what he saw at his house. His mom stayed home, his dad worked, his mom raised 9 kids. You know what I'm saying? So for him, that was what he felt was a female, motherly. You stay home, you take care of your kids so that no one else influences your children. You're the first influence on your children, Yeah. And at first, I think I've changed throughout years because when I was younger, that's kind of how I saw things. Like, okay, I don't really need a man to do a lot of things, And then as you start to mature, and as you start to like see things differently, you start to realize like, okay, there's a reason why we play 2 different roles. There's a reason why we do certain things, And I remember that conversation with my dad, and I remember feeling upset and feeling like, gosh, my dad is such a like, macho, like, how dare he not want anything else from me? But as I matured and I stepped back and looked at it, it's like, well, yeah, because that's what he saw in his home. And that's what he
Right.
thought was a perfect household, was a loving mother who raised 9 children,
Yeah.
whose dad worked very hard. And you know what I'm saying? My grandmother stayed home, so
Yeah.
that is obviously what he's going to think that is okay, and maybe what he would want for his daughters. So to me, my mom was completely opposite. That's what's funny.
Okay.
My mom grew up in a not in a single parent home. Okay. So for her, her point of views for us were always like, you've got to finish school, you've got to go to college, because you can't depend on a
That
man,
was my mom too.
and so, if it's fine if your husband is going to take care of you, but you've always got to have a backup. And if he were to leave one day, it's okay if he leaves, because you know how to work, you have an education, and he can leave tomorrow because you can pick it up right where he left off. So I had 2 different point of views. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I think when she started to work, her point of views changed, because maybe she gained a little bit of independence. But my dad never needed her money, and he never asked for it. That was my mom's money to spend on whatever she wanted to. Shopping, you know what I'm saying? She'd take us shopping. We used her money as money to travel. But I think that's where she gained a little bit of an independence, and she kind of saw it as like, oh, so if you have a job, then you could probably do a lot of the things you wanted to do, and your husband is still taking care of you. So that's okay,
Yeah.
So she was a little bit different, she kind of saw things a little bit different, but she was also very traditional in the sense where you need to get married, then you have children, you don't do the living together, that's not how you do things, so she still had very traditional ways, but she grew up different because she didn't grow up in a household where mom and dad were both there. Her mom remarried,
Yeah.
had kids with her, with her stepfather. And so her point of views were a little bit different. I think a lot of it has to do with how you're raised, the role your father played in your life, or your stepfather played in your life, whoever played the male fatherly role in your life. I think sometimes as women, that's how we start to, see men. So one of the things, like for Valentine's Day, my husband is far from romantic. He's not romantic at all. And I'm okay with that. That I knew that. I don't need it. And I don't need him to be romantic. He's more of the, touchy-feely, cuddly, hugging person. So he's more like that, but he's not the romantic kind. And so for Valentine's Day, I've always asked him to at least bring, before we had Penny, I'd ask him to bring my stepdaughter a rose and just a chocolate and a Valentine's Day card. I was like, I don't need her to think that a man needs to give you gifts for this day, and I don't think that a man should only show you affection on this day either. So I said, but a little like touch of, hey, happy Valentine's Day, you know what I'm saying? And show them that this is kind of what a man should be. At least some kind of cute gesture, some kind of cheesy gesture for you to make you feel like, aw,
And
type
that's
of thing.
actually very important, because I have a friend, and we were single one year, and we were in our early 20s already. And we were like, let's be each other's Valentine's. And I bought her like some roses, just like,
Sure.
she told me that was the first time anyone had ever given her roses.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what kind of guys have you been dating?
Wow.
Yeah, so that's very
interesting.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
That you mentioned. So a lot of times girls end up in not so great relationships because they don't feel like they deserve certain things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they end up with the whole hating men.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of it has to do with, it starts at home. Everything starts at home. And I hate to say it, but it's, I know that sometimes we don't choose certain things, like a man may be a certain way when you meet him. And then as you get to know them more, it's like, wait, this wasn't the person that I thought I was, in love with or had a child with. And then, you go separate ways because you can't seem to get along. But I feel that if you can at least in front of your children get along and pretend like you're cool, and even though you can't stand each other's guts, you're going to do a great deal of, benefit to your child, in my opinion.
Right.
Even if you hate each other, even if you can't stand each other in front of them, I'm going to thank my parents for that. I never saw them fight. Never. The only reason I knew my sister and I knew that they were mad at each other, or if they had a fight of any sort, is because on the way to church, there'd be no music in the car. And I was like, we know. We're like, I'd go like this message, like, they're mad, and we'd know. But other than that, I never saw my parents argue. If they did it on their own. I always tell my husband, I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, because maybe it gave me the impression of relationships are supposed to be perfect. I don't know, but at the same time, I thank them because I never heard my parents cuss at each other. I never heard my parents, talk down to each other, or put each other down. I never heard either one of them ever do that to each other.
Yeah.
When my parents got divorced, which was after 26 years, they were married 26 years. They only knew each other 2 weeks and they got married, and they lasted that long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. It started happening for financial reasons. My dad's business kind of started going down. My mom's business was always stable. She has a hair salon. So, so she was always doing well. And, financial issues are a lot of problems in a marriage, if you don't know how to work them out. And I think that's where they kind of didn't have that, because my dad was always a provider. And now my mom was starting to have to help. Now it came to the point where she was having to help. And I think maybe my dad struggled with accepting that now there's the female having to help out, to where I think it caused problems between them, and then they divorced. But I thank them that they didn't do it early on. I was already older. I was already 16. My sister may have, I think, felt like, I think it affected her a little bit more, but I was already older, more mature when they sat down and talked to us. It was kind of like, okay. But it was out of nowhere. It came out of left field. Like, we did not expect it at all. I was like, wait, when did y'all fight? Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it did good or bad, because I was like, when did this argument happen?
Yeah, I would say good, though, because then that allows you to have a healthy relationship. I come from a not so healthy background, and I've struggled with my relationship.
Yeah.
I used to think I don't need a man. I used to be one of those.
Yeah. I was like that too. And I think it had to do because, so before I started helping my husband with his managing his comedy tour, I had a job placement agency for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. So for 9 years, I had an agency, and I didn't need him. When my husband and I first moved in together, I remember I didn't want him to pay the rent for my apartment. And he was like, okay, so I can't live here unless I pay bills. I'm like, well, no, I don't want you to pay bills here. Because I said, if you and I don't work out, you're leaving. I'm not leaving. You know what I'm saying? This is my house. This is my stuff. So you leave, So it was because I had already gotten out of a relationship where I was the one that ended up, I left. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
At that time, I had a rental house. It was occupied. So I couldn't even go into my rental house. You know what I'm saying? I had to go stay with my sister for a little bit, until I figured out which direction I was going to take.
Yeah.
So when my husband and I moved in together, it was like, so I don't want you to pay no rent. Like, don't pay nothing here. Like, and it was like, I can't stay here and not, he was like very adamant about it.
Yeah.
He still had his house though. So he was just kind of like, okay, so then if you feel that way, then you come live at my house. I was like, no, I'm not going to go live at your house either, because what if it doesn't work out? I have to pick up my stuff again and leave. Now I'm having to move out again,
Yeah.
And then finally he said, if I'm not going to help financially in here, then I don't think our relationship's going to work. And you probably should just be on your own. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, how is this going to work? Like, who's going to pay the rent? So do I say, hey, can I have the rent money? Like, I just didn't know how that was going to work. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to go through the same situation that I had gone through in my past.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like weird. So in this relationship is where I felt I've matured, where I saw that it was like, okay, it's okay to have your husband, pay the bills. It's okay that your husband works and that you work. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? It's okay if you guys both contribute. And then when I decided to close my agency, I was like, wait, does that mean I'm going to have to ask him for money? How do you ask a man for money? I've never had to ask anybody for money, not even my parents. So I didn't even know how to do that part of it.
Yeah.
And I remember, I never forget. So I never asked him for money. So I've always had this like little rule where I need to have 6 months of savings because I always feel like you can survive for 6 months and then like the next 6 months you need to figure it out, right? And I don't even know if that's the best financial way to handle things, but that's kind of always been my thing.
Yeah.
So I knew that I had 6 months of savings after I closed my agency. So I was paying my car note, I was paying everything. And so I wouldn't ask him for anything, but he was only handling like just everything at home, but anything that was my personal, I was taking care of it.
Oh,
And so
okay.
then finally it was like my savings was up and it was going to be the following month. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to ask for the car note money. How do you ask for the car note money? So we're sitting on the couch and we're watching a movie. And I said, hey, so I need to pay my car note next month. He's like, okay. I was like, so my savings are up now though. And he goes, okay, so you have the debit card, don't you? I had a debit card to his bank account, but I never used it. I only used mine.
Okay.
And so he's like, so don't you have my debit card? And I was like, yeah. It's like, okay, so I don't understand. Like, I had already told you not to use your money, that you should have kept your money for a rainy day and that I would take care of everything, but
Yeah.
you're stubborn and you wanted to do things your way.
Yeah.
So it was after that it was kind of like, it was like,
I can relate.
yeah. Is that your situation? Is that your situation?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's taken me a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to mature also.
Yeah. It took a lot of maturing for me. And it took him telling me that I was doing those things because I didn't realize it myself. To me, it was more like, I'm not having some man take care of me so that then I'm left with nothing. And then, what do I do now? I'm having to start from scratch again, and not that I was afraid to ever start from scratch, but it was kind of like, you're not gonna do this to me. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, whatever. And it took him to kind of say like, hey, you've got to let me do some things. Like, it can't be you. That's not how relationships work. Like, I don't know. And he had been out of a relationship for a while also. So it was kind of surprising to me. I think maybe he came into our relationship already knowing what he wanted since he had been single for so long. And I had only been single for almost a year. So for me, I was still kind of like, I don't want to say the word bitter, but maybe I was still bitter because my breakup wasn't a bad breakup. It was just timed. It was done. That relationship was done. It had just come to where we weren't going anywhere. So move on. You move on. I move on,
Yeah.
So we didn't break up on bad terms, but I also felt like, damn, I moved out of my damn house. I rented it out. I moved into his house. Now I'm having to pack my shit, move out of his house. Sorry, I just cussed on your
It's
podcast.
fine.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I had to move my stuff out of his house, you know what I'm saying? Now I'm having to put my stuff in storage, now I'm having to go to my sister's house, and it's not like I could kick my renters out, you know what I'm saying? It's not like I say, hey, so I just broke up with my boyfriend, so can you give me my house back? It's like they're on a contract.
Yeah.
So it was kind of one of those things where I just kind of felt like, I'm not letting this happen to me again, And so I guess that's where you become a little bit bitter, where you're just kind of like, I'm not letting this happen the second time around. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to have my house. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have that. And I'm not going to be, you're moving in my place, not your place. You know what I'm saying? So, so I think a lot of it has some maturing. I started following this conservative female. And I hate to use that term, right? But that's kind of what she labels herself. And she did a series on women who kind of were very like independent women and, I don't need a man type of thing. And then they realized later how toxic they were being for their relationship. One of them, I almost started crying when I read it because she'd already been married 12 years. So you've been married with somebody for 12 years and you've just made this relationship so toxic for your children, for yourself, because you were just constantly just bumping heads with your husband because she no longer, I guess what happened was they financially could no longer afford daycare. Excuse me.
Okay.
So she was going to have to start staying home. And now she was no longer going to be a career woman. Now she was going to be a stay-at-home mother. And the thought of being a stay-at-home mother, I guess to her was like, was looked down upon. I don't know.
Yes, it's so crazy, but a lot of females are starting to look down at stay-at-home moms.
Why?
Like, what are you doing? You're just like mantenida, like no sirves para nada kind of thing, you know? Like what?
Really?
Yes, I see it a lot. Like they look down at
I think
moms who
that's,
stay at home, and I'm like, but they're putting their family first. Like they're
man,
doing a better job at life.
yeah. And honestly, I feel like you're rich when you can do that. If you can stay home and your husband is working, regardless if you don't live in a ginormous house or you don't drive these fancy cars, you're rich, because a lot of people can't afford to stay home and be with their children, because they both have to work to make ends meet. So for me, a stay-at-home mom to me is rich, and it's the hardest job. I know it is. My girlfriend is a stay-at-home mom. She has a degree. It wasn't her plan to stay at home, but it worked out that way because her husband travels so much. She didn't have a choice. And her working, financially, they're fine with just him working. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, wait, I'm giving up my career just so that you can take care of your career. It was kind of like that battle. And then when she realized, like, wait a minute, like my children are going to be with a sitter just so that I can work when my husband's also working. And I really just don't need to work. You know what I'm saying? Because she worked part-time anyway, so that she didn't have to give up all her time without her children. So regardless, it was happening that way for her. She's got the best tips now, like whenever for taking care of your kids. Like if something's happening, I'm almost like, I'll text her and I'll be like, hey, so this is happening. What do you suggest? Okay, cool. Because she's a stay-at-home mom. She's 100% with her kids, you know? And going back to this lady's story, she said that it was a very hard thing for her to transition to be a stay-at-home mom, because she felt less than, because she felt like her husband saw her as less than, because he didn't have to quit his career, but she did, you know? And so she said she felt bitter towards him. She was angry at him to where they were always fighting. And when she kind of like finally came out of her senses, like where it was kind of like she started accepting it, she kind of just said, well, I know women get so mad when you say this word, but I have to submit and accept that my husband is the breadwinner, and it's okay that I'm a stay-at-home mom. And she said when she did that, their marriage transformed into this, she used unicorn, because she said it just felt like it was a different type of unity, a different type of relationship, and that her husband's response was, all I ever wanted to do was take care of you and my kids. But it was a constant battle with you. And, you know, for her, it took that for her to realize that, you know, it's okay to be a stay-at-home mom. It's okay to give up your career to focus on your family. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, you know?
Yeah, and I feel sometimes we go through things, whether in our childhood, things that we saw, or once we're grown up in our own relationships, that we become very guarded, and we do become toxic to the point to where we're scared to let anyone love us.
Yeah.
Or no nos dejamos consentir.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or like, why are you being so nice type of thing? Like, okay, you're very affectionate. Why are you so affectionate? What's going on here? That's what I was like kind of at first with my husband. It was like, he was very affectionate. I was like, God, he's very affectionate. What's up with this? Like, why is he so affectionate? Like, we don't need to be that affectionate. And it was like, but wait a minute. It's okay to accept love from someone else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My previous relationship was not very affectionate. So I saw it as normal. I didn't think that it was needed. You know, there was other things, I guess, that I felt substituted that feeling of affection. You know what I'm saying? But you mature and you see things. So, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's what happened to me, because I was very, like I said, I got my master's degree. I did it like all on my own. I bought my house, and I was like, I don't want to ever depend on a man, and it's not that you have to depend on them. It's like they had to let him, like, I guess, like, it was looked down, like, for you to say, take care of, like, let him take care of you.
Yeah.
You keep your money. Like, to me, that's the smart thing. If you really want to talk about women empowerment, like, let him treat you right, and you keep your money. Because if things go south, you have a way out.
Yep.
But you don't need to be, like, paying for stuff. Well, me personally, I don't think you need to be paying for stuff if
I
he
agree.
doesn't,
Yeah.
like he wants to be the provider. He
Yeah,
wants to
let him be the
protector.
provider. I
Exactly.
totally 100% agree.
Yeah.
And if you're the stay-at-home mom and you're the financial person that does the finances, then you should be kind of smart with the finances and put some aside for a rainy day. And if he bounces, hey, them savings is mine, and you're bouncing because you got the job. I don't have the job. I was the stay-at-home mom, but I had it together. You have to be smart. You can't just be like, not know also what is coming in and out with your financially. Just because you're a stay-at-home mom doesn't mean you don't need to know. I always say it's important because should one die or something happen to them, and you don't even know when this bill is due or that bill is due, you should at least know. Even if you're not having to do it yourself, you should at least know, like, when is the light bill due? When is whatever due? So that should anything happen, you know how to take over. And it's not like, oh my God, you're so overwhelmed. You're so like, I don't know what to do. I don't even know how much money we have. You should know. If I feel like if you're not open about your finances with your other half, there's something wrong there. There's something happening there. Either he's using the money and he doesn't want you to know, or he doesn't know how to budget the money correctly and doesn't want you to know that there's some things that are being paid late. That's how I see it, because I don't see why there needs to be any secrets about finances, because
there should be.
Yeah, if something is going wrong, then we both need to kind of figure it out, put our heads together and be like, okay, how are we going to come up with the money with that? You know what I'm saying? Well, we're going to have to do this. It should kind of be the burden on both you guys, not just one to figure out, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? If you're in a relationship, a true relationship that you care about, you should really take the time to be a union and be together, and not so much of you are you and I am me, because there's a lot of that now, like where it's like 50-50 type of thing, where like your roommates, I'm like, well, if that was the case, then you should have just
stay by yourself.
Stay by yourself. I mean, what for?
What do you want him there for?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like if you handling it, then let you handle it. Then I don't know. It's like it doesn't make sense to me. So, but that's just kind of like, I guess that just comes with age. I don't know. I'm 39, so maybe like a few experiences here and there. That's what kind of teaches you what happens, in life. I don't know. And maybe, like you said, maybe a lot of it has to do with some females, the experiences they had with their dad, the experiences they had in the past with relationships. I don't know how true it is, but they always say that usually the first male in your life, which we know that's dad, is going to determine how you will have relationships in the future. And I don't know if that's been ever proven, but I read that somewhere on social media, and you can't believe everything you see on social media nowadays.
No, but it's true.
But
I think, yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Yeah, because people that I've known that end up in bad relationships had bad relationships with their dad.
Yeah,
a lot of the times, not always, but a lot of the times.
And then a lot of times, some women are like, I'm not going to have a man like my dad in my life.
Exactly.
So it makes them even, more in tune to what they really want in a man, to where sometimes I think they make it hard for themselves to find a man. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, damn, where's that balance? Like, where it's like, I don't want this, but I don't want that, but this is cool. You know what I'm saying? It's like, where's the happy medium, to where it's like, I can take this, but I'm not going to take that. One thing for me though, because my dad was, I feel, such a great father, I knew that I was never going to allow anybody to yell at me, cuss at me, or argue with me, because I didn't see it in my house. And so because that's the example my dad gave me, I always felt like my husband and I have been married 3 years, but together 6 years. And I remember the first time we had an argument and he cussed, and I said, I can no longer speak to you. I said, until you can use different vocabulary to have this discussion, I said, I can't talk to you. So when you're ready to talk to me like a regular human being without cuss words, we can talk. And he was like, what? You're just going to blow this argument off of a cuss word? And I was like, yep, I sure am. I was like, because I'm not going to have this,
Yeah.
So those are things I don't tolerate. So ever since then, it's been one time in 6 years that that's happened. And my husband knows that I or if he raises his voice too,
Yeah.
I'll be like, yeah, it looks like we can't have a conversation right now because your voice is up here and mine is down here. So where's the medium?
Yeah.
And so I think that if you don't allow that early on in a relationship, it's easier for you to communicate. Then it's like you're more open and more willing to listen to each other versus yelling and, F you and, you're this and you're that. And, I don't know. That's just my point of view on handling situations. Yeah. It's like, for what? We're not going to get nowhere by cussing at each other. We're not going to solve the problem more than likely. If we play the blame game, that's really not going to solve the problem either. So how about we just talk like regular human beings and just kind of tell me how you felt, what I made you feel like, and vice versa. And we call it a day. We either going to move on from it or you're going to stay mad at it. So which one are we going to do? So, you know what I'm saying? So that's just how I see things. So,
I like it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I didn't want to end it. I'm like very into this.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. I was like, that's my fault. I was like on my way here and I was like, what? No, I left early purposely. I was like, why did I get here late? You're only 19 minutes. But it was that damn 18-wheeler. So
maybe I'll have you on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
There's so much to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
I see girls putting up with stuff they shouldn't be putting up with. Like, or like the whole 50-50, like, or feminism stuff, they think they're doing so good and it's women empowerment. And I'm like, that's the opposite. That's not good for the woman. That's good for the man. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly. And we're only hindering ourselves when we act that way.
Yeah.
And maybe when you're on my podcast, we'll do the feminism, like legit just feminism. And we'll talk about the 4 feminism groups.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to go read on that.
Yeah. And so I'll send it to you. And the funny thing is I would love to find a female from each category. Because I would love to have that debate with with them, right? Just to see where because I need to see this, right? I need to see this. Where do you stand? Right? Exactly. Yeah, right. Like we're gonna fight here probably, so let's not, nah. I really would love to see their point of view, like where do you stand? Why do you stand that way? Like what in life made you feel that way to where it's like, you have these point of views. Something had to happen for you to be so radical or so left about it. You know what I'm saying? Something in your life, something happened, some kind of event.
Trauma.
Yeah, something had to have happened because you just can't get crazy like that for no reason. And it's too extreme sometimes. Like I feel like you should be proud to be a female. You should be proud to be a woman. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But sometimes we take it a little tad bit too far, so.
I agree.
With that being said, let's
all right. Well,
we'll end
thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.